So welcome to my channel. That's what we call the good life, and we're heading into the new year, and if you're anything like me, you're super excited to get going. Now there's lots of things you can be sowing and growing at this time of the year, but it's really important to not think that you've got to sow everything at once for a whole host of reasons. Even though you can sow things in January, it's really good to space things out. And for a start, I can only fit so much in my propagator, and it's a lot to look after when the weather's a little bit colder, and they do take a little bit more care this time of year. But equally, it's really nice to get some things started, to give them a head start, which some things really benefit from, and also to be eating some of your crops a little bit earlier. So I'm going to be going through some of the things that you can be sowing, and some of the reasons why you would, or why I'm sowing it, and the options available to you, so you can make a really good decision for yourself. Now first things first, I've got a heated propagator for a lot of my seeds. It's really worthwhile to get one of these. Absolute game changer. I've got two. Mine are quite old and a little bit battered. In fact, this is the better one of the two. The other one's held together with tape. But getting a heated propagator really helps seeds germinate that little bit quicker, because it's so cold. Some things just really wouldn't germinate very well or at all if you didn't put them in a heated propagator. Now mine's quite old, so I can't put a link up here for this one, but we'll find one of a comparable type, and we'll put a link up on the screen and also one in the description, so you can get one if that's what you'd like to do. So let's get started with the things that you can be planting. Now, broad beans are one of them. I've already started mine off in my greenhouse, and actually when I was looking back at what I did last year, I'd actually got some out in the garden already, so I kept some indoors and some outside. You can start them off in module trays like I've done, and mine are just here on the shelves, or you can even just direct sow broad beans. But the really important thing to do is to make sure you get the overwintering varieties. I've got an aqua dulce variety. There's two types of aqua dulce, and I can't remember which one, but they're both good for overwintering. But just check on the packets that they're the overwintering variety, and then they should be fine. No, not guaranteed, because if it's a little bit harsh, and I've got a little bit of frost damage on mine anyway, even though they've been in the greenhouse, because my greenhouse isn't heated. But just make sure you source the right things, which leads me on to peas. Again, another really good thing. I planted some in my greenhouse, but they've not germinated, so they've either not germinated or something's eaten them. But I actually didn't realise until after I checked my seed packet, I didn't check whether they were overwintering. So although I'm holding up a packet of seeds, don't do what I did. Make sure, if you want to put some peas in this time of year, which is perfectly viable to do, and I grew them very well last year and started them off in my greenhouse and had an early crop of them. Make sure they're overwintering. Early onward is a really good variety, but again, check the seed packets. So I'm going to have to source myself some new seeds, because I would still like to get some in and to get an early crop. And don't forget, you don't have to leave peas in for the peas. There's an awful lot of people in there that sow the first lot of peas just for pea shoots to put in salads. So you could do all for that, or half and half. It's completely up to you. But again, another quite quick growing crop, and you haven't got to wait for the peas to form if you want to just use them for pea shoots. So something else you can be starting off are leeks. So I won't be starting these off this month, but it's perfectly viable to start them off this month. And I generally start them off in a little seed tray in the propagator, and then I bring them on a windowsill, because it could still be a little bit chilly for them. So leeks are definitely a good one, and well worth sowing them either this month or next month, so they thicken out nicely quite early on in the season. The other thing are spring onions, and again, I generally start them off in a little seed tray or in little modules, only because I just get the most terrible germination with any kind of onion seed. When I put them direct into the ground, I don't know whether they don't germinate or whether something eats them, but generally speaking, I'll always start them off in a seed tray. And again, because it's quite cold, I would pop them in a heated propagator just until they've germinated. And just a little tip, right at the start when you're using a propagator, the biggest mistake I see with people making, and this is why I'm saying it in my first video of the year, for the year, is as soon as the seeds have popped through, and I mean as soon as they've popped through, you can take the lid off. You can still leave the heat on it if you want to, but take the lid off, because if you leave it on this time of year, one of the biggest struggles we have is stopping things from getting leggy, unless you've got like a full light system, which I haven't got. You know, I either have to keep things in my greenhouse or I keep things on in my windowsill inside the house. and things can get really leggy really quickly. And if you get that lid off straight away, they're not going to get as leggy, and that will really help you and not have to start your seeds off again. I mean, I have got videos on how to rescue after leggy seeds, but let's try not to do that in the first place. But we all do it from time to time, including me, even though I know not to. But some things just germinate ridiculously quickly. Something else that's quite a lovely thing to start off, and generally most herbs, albeit starting them off indoors, again using the propagator, are herbs. What a wonderful thing to get going for the start of the year. I've got chives here, I've got coriander, I've got basil, I've got oregano, I've got some dill, which I've never done dill before, so I've obviously got this packet from somewhere and it's never come out of the packet, and thyme. So lovely, lovely things to be able to start off from seed. So that's something you can be starting off this month. So something I will be starting off this year, and anyone who follows my channel knows that I generally go for grafted peppers and aubergines. But I found some seeds in my packet that were still in date, and I'm moving next year, so if I'm honest, I'm a little bit reluctant to pay for grafted plants this year because they are very expensive but are very good. So I'm going to be having a go at starting off my sweet peppers, my chili peppers, and some aubergines. Now these are well worth starting off in January or February because they do typically take a long time to grow. So I'm definitely going to be starting these off now. In fact, let's do that now. So I'm going to get some little trays. These are just reused trays, by the way. I think I bought little trays of lettuces or things from garden centres, and I just keep them if they've not fallen apart. But they're quite a nice little size, so you don't use too much compost, and you don't have to put too many seeds in them either. And because they're quite shallow, the water comes up through the bottom quite easily. So my compost is a mix of multi-purpose and block core that I put water on, and I find that quite easy. It's easier than having to buy seed compost as well, I find, and it's a bit more multi-use as well. Plus the fact the core doesn't take up much room in your shed or wherever you keep your compost. So it's really good if you haven't got a block, just to have a block of wood just to flatten them off. I always do them flat over to the top, probably just from watching lots of Gardener's World, and that's what they do. They fill the compost right up to the top, and then you just knock it down and flatten it off just with like a block like this. That's a really simple thing to do. So no fancy tools here, just blocks of wood and reused cartons. So I've got sweet Romana mixed pepper, which is like a long thin sweet pepper. I've got Hungarian hot wax, which I've grown many times before, and it's a very versatile, quite a mild chilli, so you can really easily use that in things. And even though I've opened the packet, I don't remember using these, but this is Black Beauty, but I do vaguely remember growing a Black Beauty variety, which are quite a small and prolific variety. So we're gonna give these a go. So reading the packets now. So it's always worth reading the packets if you don't know what you're doing with seeds, because I can't remember everything every year. And then obviously just gently sprinkle them out. It's easier not to have gloves on when you do this. So let's get these quickly planted. The method for planting the aubergines is exactly the same as the peppers, so I'll try and get these planted as quickly as possible so we can be moving on to the other things you can be planting. I do genuinely spot drop things like aubergines, because otherwise you'll have too many. It's a little bit fiddly. They don't have to be in precise rows, but I try not to clump them together too much, so they're easier, much easier to then pot on. So this method for the aubergines is exactly the same method as I will use for the peppers. So it's quite easy, so drop them in. And if they don't germinate this month, then I'll just do some more next month. But it'd be really good if I could get them to germinate that little bit earlier, and I can get some aubergines a little bit sooner. So obviously pop them back in. So I might need some more of those. It is also worth checking the dates on seeds as well. I went through some of mine the other day, and some of my microgreens didn't germinate, and then when I checked the backs of the packets, they were really ancient. That's to say, I don't throw seeds out genuinely unless they stop growing. I quite happily use a pack of seeds that are out of date, but when something doesn't germinate, it kind of highlighted me to look on how old the packet was. Now you can just cover this with a small amount of compost, but I like using the vermiculite because it lets a little bit more light through, and I find germination that little bit better. So that's my peppers and aubergines ready. So I'm just going to pop these into my propagator. I will take this propagator into the house because I don't have electric in here. But I'm just going to pop them in there. Again, you can see how well they fit in there. And please do label them. Sometimes I forget, or I think I'll remember. Label as you go because it's easy to get them muddled up. You water into the tray. And then the water sucks up into the seed. So again, another big issue that I see with people is they water over the top. With delicate seeds, they'll just spray everywhere. So you water into the tray, it then sucks up in, and it will then water the seeds for you, which I will do a little bit later. So let's move on to some of the other things you can be starting off now. And again, like I said, you don't have to start them off this month. If all you did this month was just plan and source your seeds ready to plant, that would still be absolutely fantastic. So tomatoes, I've got a new one I've never grown before, which I'll be starting off probably next month, to be honest, and one called Honeycomb F1, which sounds and looks absolutely wonderful. I mean, who wouldn't want to eat a tomato that had the name honeycomb? So we're going to be doing that one, and one of my favourites, which is Roma, which is like a big Italian plum tomato. I love it's adorable for so many things. Lovely big juicy tomatoes, fantastic for sauces, fantastic for grilling a tomato or just eating. It's absolutely delicious. I can't rate it enough. My two very favourite things. I've got some other seeds. Some other tomato seeds, but they're my two most excited ones. The other thing is you can be doing salad leaves. Now I've got a few started off, but again at some point either this month or next month I'll be starting some more off. Although chard is technically a spinach, you can use it as small leaves in salads, and it's quite hardy as well. So I've got bright lights here, but there's also rainbow chard, which are by far my favourite because they've got all the different brightly coloured stems. So you can be starting those off. Wild Rocket is another one of my favourites because it just keeps growing. So I've got some in my home garden that just keeps resowing itself. So another fantastic thing to start off this time of year. It's worth bearing in mind, you know, go for things that you actually enjoy eating yourself. All too often we grow something but we don't actually like it that much. So do go, some of these things have quite strong flavours, but I quite like that. Mustard Ruby Streaks, another one to bring a lovely little bit of colour, and again quite hardy. Sorrel, another good one, and I would still be tempted to start them off in the propagator. I know it sounds a little bit lazy, but it's a little bit hit and miss sometimes whether things will germinate, especially when you've not got a heated greenhouse. So I do cheat a little bit by starting most things off this time of year in here. With the exceptions of peas and broad beans would normally be fine, but again you can still pop them in there to give them a little bit of a head start. And we've also got the traditional all year round lettuce, typically named, that you can sow any year round. Corn salad is another favourite, and I've got a frilly leaf variety as well. Unfortunately no pretty pictures on that one, but I will over the coming couple of months be starting to sow some of these myself. Something I did is also really quite lovely to do are sprouting seeds. Unfortunately these are the ones that didn't germinate, so I'm going to have to get myself some new seeds, but I've got alfalfa there, fenugreek, mung beans is another popular one. People sprout chickpeas, all sorts of different beans, but it's something that will sprout within a few days. So if you've never grown anything before, or you're just aching to eat something that you've grown yourself, I've got a little sprouter, but you can do them in jam jars if you Google them. Or if you watch my last video of what to sow in December, I do talk about how you sprout, but they grow in just in a few days. So you'll be putting something really tasty and really nutritious into your food that you've grown yourself. Another thing that I will be starting off. Of course, and you've got mustard there as well, mustard and cress, the good old-fashioned ones that we all did as kids, but we all still buy in the supermarket sometimes. It's so cheap to do yourself. And lastly, the other thing you can be sowing, and which I'm going to be giving a go at, is microgreens. Now, although I've bought actual things that are classed as microgreens, you can just use old brassica seeds. So if you've got some cauliflower seeds where the seeds are a little bit old, or some carrot seed, or some beetroot seeds, these ones are basil, pak choi, chicory and mustard oriental, and I've actually got a mixed pack, and I don't even know what's in that one. Oh no, it does say it on the back. So on this one it's got a mixture of herbs, baby leaf salad, oriental vegetables, which can be used as microgreens. So there's lots of different things you could use. So where it's quite different when I'm sowing these as opposed to those, where I put those in really quite thinly, because I don't want them all to tangle together. These don't matter because I'm not going to split these up. So you could do them in little module trays to do little pods of them where you could plant them out or keep them separate, or you could just do what I'm doing, and I'm just going to quite generously do a few. And this kind of thing, microgreens, you would successional sow these, so you just sprinkle these like this, so you don't have to be quite so controlled with it, albeit I need to try not to get it into the compost that I've got underneath the pot. So you can do that, and again you can cover it with a little bit more compost, or if you're like me, you could use a little bit of vermiculite, and obviously don't forget to label it. And these will go in the tray with those in exactly the same way, and I'll give them a little bit of heat until they just pop through, and then I'll just keep them in on a warm windowsill in my house. Now I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to watch another video, we've got a really excellent one on the great ground cover debate, which we will pop on the screen now.